Okay, I'm on. I'm sorry. Things weren't working. But let me know if anything's off. I think that they're good though. All right. This is so loud in my ear. I think I'm gonna just have to not listen to myself. Tell me if I'm doing anything obnoxious, honestly. Like if I'm making like some kind of crazy noise and it sounds bad because I cannot have myself talking in my ear while I'm talking. I just can't speak anymore. Okay, so we're doing you guys know why we're here. We're gonna do cryptids. This is something that at this point I'm just picking topics based on like whatever the fuck I want to talk about. I mean, if you guys have a topic suggestion, I'd absolutely love to hear it. But at this point, this is just shit that I was gonna Google anyway. And so I've made this, you guys, I made this beautiful Word doc. It's full of, and I use the headers so that, and I made links and I can jump around. And oh my god, I'm so competent. Okay, okay, I put my snack down. All right, so let's start with what cryptids are. Cryptids are animals or other beings whose present existence is disputed or oh my god, unsubstantiated by science. I can speak, I promise. And then cryptozoology is the study of cryptids. It's a pseudoscience claiming that such beings may exist somewhere in the wild. So I was on a road trip in like Maine or something. This doesn't have a location. This was either in like Maine or I think I saw this one was in Maine. I went to the a cryptozoology museum, so I made sure to use that cup, and then I used my little space straw. It's like shiny. I don't know if you can tell. It's got stars, and it's got a little ghost straw topper on there. Very cool. Oh, and then I made this background. I might touch it up honestly, but it's like you can see it better when my camera's not covering half of it. But I thought it was really cute. It's like the woods. Um, yeah. So I guess I'll jump right into it. We're gonna start with stories. These are from Reddit. A lot of them. So this happened to my son when he was 17 years old. We lived in New Mexico at the time. My son, Cody, was riding along with his friends, Drew and Alex. They were in Drew's truck and Drew was driving. It was night and they were heading to Drew's house. Drew lived out in the country, so the road they were on was isolated and surrounded by desert. In fact, the whole area is flat and mostly dirt. As they were driving along, they see a man standing in the middle of the road. Drew slows down and they all expect the guy to move off to the side. The guy doesn't move. He just stands there. Drew slows to a stop. The guy is standing just outside the light from the headlights. He's wearing jeans and some sort of long sleeve shirt. They couldn't make out the features of this guy's face, but they could tell he was facing them. Nobody moves for a few seconds. The kids start talking about maybe going around him, but aren't sure if they should pass by this guy or just turn around and go the other way. Suddenly, the guy drops to all fours and starts running towards the truck. All the kids start screaming. Drew slams the truck into reverse and floors it. Now they're going backwards down this dark country road, and this guy is chasing them on all fours, and he's keeping up with the truck. Drew goes faster, and finally the guy drops out of sight. Drew turns the truck around, and they all came back to our house. I was in the living room when they came running in, slammed and locked the door, and went tearing up the stairs to Cody's room. I went to see what was going on, and this is what they told me. I've never seen them so pale and frightened. They were completely freaked out. This happened on a Friday night around 8 p.m. These were kids that normally would rather be anywhere except home on the weekend. That weekend, they stayed at our place the whole time. They didn't go out at all. And then they finally left because they had school on Monday. It took a month before they wanted to go out again at night. They would go. They would go anywhere during the day, but at night they usually gathered at our house. So, some people in the comments of this story Yeah, I know, this freaks me the fuck. Like, what is this guy just okay, any kind of if there's a figure at night, I'm already freaked out. Literally, like they could look nice even. I'm just like I don't know, it's freaky. And then to get on all fours and run at someone's truck is just not okay behavior. So some of the people in this comment in the comments were like, Skinwalker. This sounds like a skinwalker. So we're gonna talk about skinwalkers. Alright, in Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. Um, the I God, I hope I don't say this wrong. I mean, I'm sure I will, but I hope it's not that bad. The Yi Nao Du Lushi, translating to by means of it, it goes on all fours, which is just terrifying. Terrifying. Is perhaps the most common variety seen in horror fiction by non-Navajo people, is one of the several types of skinwalkers within Navajo beliefs. So there are like a bunch of different types. I didn't get into a ton of the types, because we've got a lot of really cool cryptids and things to look through today. But so it says these witches are seen as the antithesis of Navajo values, performing malevolent ceremonies and using manipulative magic in stark contrast to the beneficial works of medicine people. The legend of skinwalkers is deeply embedded in Navajo tradition and rarely discussed with outsiders. This reticence is partly due to cultural taboos and the lack of contextual understanding by non-Navajos. Stories often depict skinwalkers using their powers for evil, and they are considered a source of fear and mystery within Navajo communities. Traditional accounts describe them as powerful sorcerers who, after engaging in various nefarious acts, gain the ability to transform into animals at will. Just reading this and picturing the guy on the road is just maybe too much. Navajo witches, including skinwalkers, represent the antithesis of Navajo cultural values, while community healers and cultural workers are known as medicine men and women, or by other positive terms in the community's indigenous language. Witches are seen as evil, performing harmful ceremonies and manipulative magic in a perversion of the good works medicine people traditionally perform. In order to practice their good works, traditional healers may learn about both good and evil magic in order to protect against evil, but people who choose to become witches are seen as corrupt. As of 1986, the legend of the Skinwalkers is not well understood outside of Navajo culture, both due to reluctance to discuss the subject with outsiders, as well as what Cherokee Nation academic Adrian Keene says is a lack of the necessary cultural context the stories are embedded within. Traditional Navajo people are reluctant to reveal skinwalker lore to non-Navajos, or to discuss it at all amongst those they do not trust. Keene, founder of the website Native Appropriations, has written in response to non-Navajos incorporating the legends into their writing, and specifically the impact when J.K. Rowling did so, that when this is done, we as Native people are now opened up to a barrage of questions about these beliefs and traditions, but these are not things that need or should be discussed by outsiders at all. I'm sorry if it seems unfair, but that's how our culture survives. So I didn't want to get in too much about skinwalkers, but I know that they're very popular in media right now, but it sounds like that's kind of not great for these people. So I just wanted to, I mean, that story in and of itself was pretty entertaining but insane. Um so next story. Okay, hold on. All of my links seem to have caused me a problem. I did not practice going through them in the right way. Okay, found it. All right, this one. I was walking home one night at about 3 a.m. About a block from my house down the road, I saw an inhumanly tall figure in what appeared to be a bright white cloth. I don't believe in ghosts and stuff. I made a comment about this, and someone said it sounded like a Fresno nightcrawler. What bothers me, though, is that if nightcrawlers are real, this one was easily almost 9 feet tall, where most reports set them at no taller than 4 and at around 4 feet, and one was at 6. It really didn't do anything besides walk across the lawns of houses. By the time I got down the road, it was long gone, though I did have a feeling I was being followed or watched the rest of the walk home. Sorry, I gotta keep up with you guys' comments. I can't read. I'm not a fast reader. Alright. Cool. Alright. Then this next one is also pretty similar. I have one of these as well. This was literally a response to that first story. Although it was not as tall as the one you saw, I was at the park with my then girlfriend that has a neighborhood on one side and a few miles of pretty dense forest on the other. We were stargazing, and as we sat in this opening near the neighborhood, I heard a rustling in a patch of shrubbery. It sounded like a person stomping around. I immediately got up to investigate, as this area is known for sketchy activity like drug deals. What I saw made no sense. I still feel like I imagined it or something. I saw what looked like a person hunched over with a white cloth over them walk out of the bushes and stand on this path that goes around the entire park. I turned to my girlfriend and asked her what it looks like to her without telling her what it looked like to me, and she described it exactly as I did. So we hightailed it out of there, booked it to my car, and got in. And I wanted to know what the hell that was. Turned on the high beams in hopes it would follow us, and it didn't. Now, this is where the story gets even stranger. Please hear me out on this, as I've never shared this with anyone but those close to me and my girlfriend, and I've never talked about it again. We went to another park because we wanted to continue stargazing. So we drove a few miles to this other park that is essentially just a giant field. We found a bench and sat down and managed to forget about that weird encounter. Personally, I wouldn't go outside again for several days after this, but okay. They were like, let's go to a different park. After about 10 to 15 minutes of this, we suddenly saw, not heard, mind you, what appeared to be a black helicopter fly over us in the direction that first park. This thing was completely silent, no noise at all. I have not been able to find any pictures online that come close to what it looked like, but if you're familiar with Halo Reach, it looked like a falcon. This thing maneuvered like nothing I've ever seen. Granted, I don't know much about aviation, but it dipped over the tree line at an angle so steep that we thought it was going to crash. The weirdest part of all of this is that there was someone else at the second park, an old lady walking her dog, that didn't react to the plane or helicopter thing at all. It was by far the strangest night of my life. We both agreed that maybe we had some bad food or something, and we decided to just go home and go to bed. I have yet to return to either park, and I don't really ever plan on doing so. There's some really strange shit out there, man. If I saw the exact same thing as the person next to me, I might try to convince myself it was because of some bad food, but I'd be lying to myself. Okay. So, about the Fresno nightcrawler. The Fresno nightcrawler is a cryptid from Fresno, California, characterized by its long legs, white humanoid appearance, and lack of arms, often likened to a pair of walking pants. Its existence gained traction from a grainy 2007 surveillance video showing two figures on a lawn, sparking debate and inspiring viral fame. Merchandise and theories from ghosts to alien species, while the original footage remains undebunked, the phenomenon is largely considered an urban legend. A lot of these included, like, this is what that probably was. Scientists say that this is a load of shit, and I omitted those because that kills the fun. Absolutely zero horror movie survival skills. 100%. Yeah, when I said Halo Falcon, I was like, I personally don't know what that was, but this will probably clear some things up. With the chat. Alright. So this one, oh my god, is uh I'll read that at the end because it's kind of long. Essentially, okay, so I'll retell it, and then if we have time at the end, I'll read it. It's a very long story. It's on Reddit. Essentially, these people live like by the woods. They don't have a lot of neighbors. Their neighbors are pretty far away, and they're used to seeing wildlife. They're like there's this bear that they named Captain that they see pretty like often on their property, and Captain starts acting weird. He starts like marking his territory more, just kind of things like that. And then one night they see. I'm really tempted to read the story. It's so interesting. Okay, all right, fine. It's not too often when reports seeing or having indications of a cryptid with a normal animal, if they're believed to be real, however. Humans can't be the only things they interact with, and not every animal out there is vulnerable. This, oh, and yeah, this was not a report I myself witnessed, but instead one my grandmother told me about my aunt, um, about that my aunt later corroborated independently, so I think they're trustworthy. At the time, I'll note there wasn't much talk of dogmen, as this was about a decade before the infamous song came out, though there was talk of wolves and werewolf like monsters in the Appalachia for a long time, so my aunt and grandmother just always called it that wolf thing or creature. I'm reading it. Okay. Um, for a little background, my grandparents' and currently aunt's home is in the backwoods of western Grayson County, Virginia, which is to this day is still sparsely populated outside of one or two large towns on the east side, and back then it was even less so. Extremely thick forest with hilly terrain in all directions. You have to get on a dirt path to follow it for about half a mile to get to a gravel covered side road, and then follow it for about 30 minutes to reach a very small town just across the North Carolina border. If you go a short ways north, you find yourself at the Blue Ridge Mountains Park that led up to the Appalachia. Um, I'm gonna skip a little bit of just like what it looks like and that they go fishing there and stuff. My father had graduated from college and was going on to the Air Force. He had already moved out. My grandfather, though he was old enough to retire, liked to remain busy, so he worked his old job as an electrician and power pole technician just now in an advisory role because he was getting up there in years. He had just gotten the contract down in North Carolina, so he was away from the house for about a week and a half. This left only my 17-year-old aunt and grandmother at the house. As I said, there usually was a lot of wildlife in the area. A typical morning for my grandmother was making breakfast and sitting on her porch watching deer and rabbits eat the shrubs. Sometimes she would also see or hear a bobcat, fox, or coyote about. On one occasion, a mountain lion and her cubs strolled right past the house. One animal she was familiar with in a particular way was a very large black bear who could be recognized by folks around those parts from a white patch on his chest and a hole in his left ear. My grandmother nicknamed him Captain because he had a habit of sitting on his haunches and reaching up with his paws to pick apples, a motion that looked like he was saluting. Captain was a very big black bear, but wasn't very aggressive unless tested. He seemed to have an agreement with my grandmother and grandfather that if they left him alone, he would leave them alone. He just strolled by the house every now and then to have some blackberries on the bushes or apples that had fallen down, which meant he came by the house's yards often, and he was too big to climb trees much more than fruit trees around the house were uh, low enough. He could reach up and pick food. My grandfather guesstimated he was somewhere in the 500 to 600 pound range and about 6 feet tall. Okay, during the week, my grandmother noticed a fairly sharp decline in the animals nearby. It was the latter part of the summer and a wet season, so most of the plants were in full bloom, and the leaves were in their tenderest, yet she couldn't see hide nor hair of rabbits or deer coming to graze. A coyote she had her oh my god, sorry. I'm trying to cut out the really, like, a lot of the fluff. A few neighbors, who stopped by told her something, about, had, oh my god. A few neighbors who had stopped by told her something had taken their dog and their chicken coop had been smashed into. They assumed the mountain lion had lurked about and had done it since it was the only other thing that could feasibly take down a large farm dog, as they had seen Captain, the only other predator nearby big enough to take down an 80-pound farm dog, the day after in a completely different area, gorging himself on a dead deer. They checked around and couldn't find anything. The next night, my grandmother was woken up by my aunt, who told her that she heard something bang against the outside of her wall. They checked around in the morning after and found one of the deer butchered with a bloody smear on the wall. Judging from the way the gravel was disturbed, the deer had been walking by the house when something ambushed it, and in the struggle it got smacked against the wall. My grandmother, having grown up in the woods, was familiar with predators, kills, and methods. Mountain lions tend to jump on the back and rake their claws across the flanks to hold on as they bite the neck. Black bears will usually break the neck or the back of their paws while biting the head. And the rare occasions coyotes attack deer, they usually do it by biting down on the inside of their leg and twisting to rip the muscles and arteries. This kill clearly had the throat ripped out, but there weren't any claw marks to be found, and the bite looked narrower than what a cougar would do. Plus, she could gander that there was one predator from the way that the ground had been disturbed, which didn't make sense for coyotes because they typically hunted in pairs, since just one alone wasn't usually big enough to bring down a full-grown deer. After disposing of the carcass, the next few nights were relatively uneventful, except for the fact that several times my aunt or grandmother would be woken up in the middle of the night by the sound of something panting outside. Now, in these woods, you could hear a pin drop if it's close enough, and at some points, they could swear the animal making the panting was directly outside of their wall. One day, my grandmother was picking some berries, and she noticed that uh, that looked like dog tracks of a very large hound going through the mud flat bordering the nearby stream. Thinking it might be the missing farm dog who had maybe just run away, she followed the tracks until she heard something loudly growling at her from across the stream. She looked up to see the partially obscured face of what looked like a large, bulky, brown-covered coyote or wolf standing in a thicket on the side of the stream. She quickly began to back away, glancing back only to check her footing on the slope that led down the stream. When she looked back, she saw the very distinctly canine face in much greater detail because the animal had moved out from under cover. But instead of stepping out of the leaves like she thought it did at first, she soon noticed that it was instead standing up on its hind legs and peering over the shrubs. Now she had seen canines stand up right before. Dogs do it, foxes can do it, coyotes sometimes do it. It was the size that took her off guard. She had been to that exact same thicket of shrubs just the other day, and her head only barely reached the top. And my grandmother was around 5'3". This thing had its head pitched clear over the shrubs, with a little bit extra visible, and usually when a predator is making no attempt to hide, it's usually because it's trying to intimidate somebody. My grandmother managed to back away down the hill without turning around, and then she started to get out of sight. The creature stepped out of the thicket on its hind legs. It strolled forward in a very uncanny way that she had trouble describing, but she insisted it never went back down on all fours. Needless to say, she ran into the house in a backpedal sprint. That night, they heard the panting again, along with a distant howl and scraping sounds. They found the garage door, back door frame, and kitchen window frame all had claw marks on them from something investigating them. The canine creature was seen a few more times across the week by my grandmother and neighbors, usually on or near the area of the family's property. My aunt finally saw it when she saw a pair of fuzzy ears outside her window. Oh my god, the window stuff? I don't like it. Now she wasn't Now, she wasn't startled right off the bat from this, as Captain had come by her window a few times before, and she gradually lost some fear of the big bear over the years. But in this case, his ears just barely reached the edge of the windowsill, whereas in this case, you could clearly see them. In the top of the owner's head, she quickly realized that it wasn't the bear because of the pointed shape, brown coloring, and the fact that it had two fully intact ears. They also started to detect a very pungent smell on the outside door porch, one time finding that what looked like some urine or some other liquid stains on it, suggesting the animal had scent marks to claim the spot. It all came to a head on Wednesday night when they heard howling in the distance growing closer. My grandmother flipped on the porch light and glimpsed the canine animal quickly sprinting across the lawn on its hind legs again. Sprinting on its hind legs. Her sighting confirming how big it was. She'd seen timber wolves at the zoo up to 150 pounds, and she was certain this was at least a bit more than twice that size. For several hours of the night, they could hear it roaming around the property and pressing against doors like it was trying to find a way in. They glimpsed at several points eye-shine of yellow eyes peering in through the windows, as well, oh my god, cover the windows, you guys, as well as broad, long-fingered paws being pushed against the glass briefly. This was the day and age before cell phones and 24-hour police service in some rural areas, so no one had a means of immediately calling the police. Instead, my grandmother had to wait a long time on a dial line with connection difficulty, trying to call the police station 2 towns over. She was distracted by my aunt screaming, running into the bedroom to get one of the guns out. She had been sitting in the living room when she felt clicking against the glass and saw the wolf thing pressing its face and bared teeth against the surface with its claws fully outstretched. Both of them started to try to get rifles and shotguns out. It was becoming increasingly clear the creature was trying to get into the house, and they knew that they were in there. Yeah, because you didn't cover the fucking windows. They heard it panting through a wall before there was a sound of heavy footsteps and a very loud thump, with a flash of fur on the edge of the window. They ran to the innermost room, the pantry locker, and stayed in there with guns. Now, it's not like in the movies when creatures roar, snarl, and hiss constantly no matter what they're doing, but they did hear a commotion outside. My aunt and grandmother hadn't the faintest idea of what was going on and didn't investigate until the morning after, but they could tell something was antagonizing something, as occasional grunts, barks, and rumbles were audible through the blackness for about a minute and gradually moved off. They found no bodies, but there had clearly been a ferocious altercation. The ground was ripped up in multiple spots, the wall had a dent in it, and there was some oxidized blood traces on the grass and dirt. My grandmother also found a trail where something had charged through the shrubs and recovered several vague dog prints as well as wider tracks moving in the same direction. The animals all seemed to come back by the end of the week, and the house stopped. When my grandfather came back home, he, my aunt, and some neighbors surveyed the area to make sure they couldn't find the wolf creature. Evidently, the neighbors had also heard growls around their property at night. That stopped recently, too. They couldn't find it despite surveying the whole property, though they did find what looked like a trackway leading out of the property and running off into the mountains. Several days later, my grandmother saw Captain again, marking his territory by rubbing up against a tree in their yard and scratching the bark. He had several cuts across his muzzle, was missing patches of fur, and had some healed bite wounds on his arm. And the hole in his ear had been torn open, to the point that he was missing half of his ear flap. But other than that, and a slight limp that went away with time, he was fine. My aunt joked that he looked rather proud of himself. I'm not very good at reading out loud when I feel pressured, but that's insane. So now we're going to read about the DogMan. Okay. In folklore, the Michigan Dogman was a creature allegedly witnessed in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan, United States. It was described as a 7-foot tall, blue-eyed or amber-eyed, bipedal canine-like animal with the torso of a man, and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. According to the legends, the Michigan Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in 7 and can be deterred by clapping loudly. Sightings have been reported in several locations throughout Michigan, primarily the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. The first alleged encounter of the Michigan Dogman occurred in 1887 in Wexford County when two lumberjacks saw a creature they described as having a man's body and a dog's head. In 1937 Paris, Michigan, Robert Fortney was attacked by 5 wild dogs and said one of them walked on 2 legs. Reports of similar creatures also came from Allegan County in the 1950s and in Manistee and Cross Village in 1967. Other sightings include a series of occurrences in Ottawa County from 1993 to 1994. Most of these reports came from a man simply referred to as Ben. He claims to have seen the beast on 3 separate occasions. One such sighting was December 1993, wherein he spotted the Dogman in his parents' driveway on Lakewood Drive. The creature was standing behind cars on its hind legs, only running off when Ben started screaming. I'm trying to keep up with the chat now. Okay. Yeah, the Dogman is not cool with me. I don't like that. The behavior of like literally stalking them and like trying to get into their house, watching them through their windows, insane. Not cool. Okay. Now we go back to here. Now we're just gonna get into some miscellaneous freaky stories. My entire childhood, my father and I used to take late night walks due to his insomnia from shift work. Our neighborhood is considered very safe and ultimately was an urban neighborhood, besides one of the roads towards the back of the neighborhood being lined with a thick forest for about a mile, and about a quarter deep, which made a circle back in itself. All these walks were very dear memories of mine, except one, and it ended being the last one. Along the road, with the tree line, there was a single street light illuminating a small plot of land that someone owned, but was very overgrown and ill kept. It was very common for us to walk this road and enjoy the sounds of the forest and the lack of illumination and the ease of circling back. One ordinary night, as we were walking and making conversation, my father abruptly stops, pulls me close, and puts a hand over my mouth, crouches with me, and points towards a single illuminated plot roughly 100 yards away. At first, I didn't see anything and thought he was pulling my leg, but just as I began to protest his grasp, I see a very small humanoid figure, roughly 3 feet in height, scrawny with long limbs, materialize out of the plot's brush line and cautiously take in its surroundings before signaling towards the brush. After a few seconds, 2 other small humanoid figures materialize as well. After a brief moment of what looked like a discussion, all 3 make a dash for the forest tree line. Once this happened, my father picked me up, threw me over his shoulder, and made a break for our home, which was roughly a half-mile back. He never showed signs of slowing due to his fear and adrenaline. After this night, we never took late night walks again. He installed 4 bright motion detection lights around our acre plot, and brought home a dog. The few times I've tried bringing it up, he doesn't want to discuss it and made it clear he never wanted to. Those figures still give me chills, and the image of the 3 huddled together is very, very vivid 15 years later. Dogman, IKEA freak. Alright. Now I'm just going to go through some cryptids that I thought were kind of crazy. So, number 1, Mothman. He's my favorite. I made this little thing of him. And because he's just fun and cool. I got like a magnet of him on my fridge. I have like a bunch of stickers of him. Because I like that basically like his lore is just like a couple people saw something really weird. And I'm not saying that they didn't. And then from there, it was like there were like 2 or 3 sightings or something. And then or like main ones that were like, yeah, I definitely saw the same thing as you. And then from there on, they made like a movie about it. There was like a bridge collapse in the area, and they were like, Mothman did that. Because why? I don't know. And then also I like that there is a statue of him around the area that like he originated from, and people put quarters in his butt crack so much that they had to make a post to say, "Please stop putting quarters in Mothman's butt crack." And then I'm pretty sure that they put more quarters in his butt crack. So, all right, I need water. That's why I like Mothman. Also because people have just like really taken off with it. Like I saw one that was like, um, okay, I guess I will say this. Mothman ate my whole ass at a Denny's, and I put that sticker on the back of my phone for a while, and then people will be like my husband is Mothman or whatever. Like fucking love it. Okay, in American folklore, Mothman is a humanoid creature that was reportedly seen around Point Pleasant, West Virginia, from November 15th, 1966 to December 15th, 1967. Despite its name, the original sightings of the creature described avian features. The first newspaper report was published in the Point Pleasant Register, dated November 16th, 1966, entitled "Couples See Man-Sized Bird Creature Something." The national press soon picked up the reports and helped spread the story across the United States. The source of the legend is believed to have originated from sightings out of migration sandhill cranes or herons. The creature was introduced to a wider audience by Gray Barker in 1970 and was later popularized by John Keel in his 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies. Like, I want to know what's in the Mothman Prophecies because it has to be made up, right? Like they just took these 2 sightings and he was like, this is a religion now. Like, this guy, I don't know. Claiming that there were paranormal events related to the sightings and a connection to the collapse of the Silver Bridge. The book was later adapted into a 2002 film starring Richard Gere. An annual festival in Point Pleasant is devoted to the Mothman legend. I would love to go to that, honestly. That sounds like fun. On November 15th, here's the encounter. On November 15th, in 1966, 2 young couples from Point Pleasant, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Millette, told police they had seen a large black creature whose eyes glowed red, standing at the side of the road near the TNT area, the site of a former World War II munitions plant. Linda Scarberry described it as a slender, muscular man, about 7 feet tall with white wings. However, she was unable to discern its face due to the hypnotic effect of its eyes. Distressed, the witness sped away, reporting that the creature flew after their car, making a screeching sound. It pursued them as far as Point Pleasant city limits. I also think it's funny to just think that this is like just a crane or something. And they were like freaked out and they were like, oh my god, it's following us. Over the next few days, more people reported similar sightings of local newspapers covering it. 2 volunteer firemen who saw it said it was a large bird with red eyes. Mason County Sheriff George Johnson believed the sightings were due to an unusually large heron he termed a shitapoke. Contractor Newell Partridge told Johnson, there are too many names in here, that when he aimed a flashlight at the creature in a nearby field, its eyes glowed like bicycle reflectors. Additionally, he blamed buzzing noises from his television set and the disappearance of his German Shepherd Bandit on the creature. He was like, yeah, that TV makes a buzzing noise. That's Mothman. Wildlife biologist Richard L. Smith, I can say that one, at West Virginia University told reporters that descriptions and sightings fit the sandhill crane, a large American crane almost as tall as a man with a 7-foot wingspan and reddish coloring around its eyes. The bird may have wandered out of its migration route and therefore was unrecognized at first because it was not native to the region. Yeah, and then they're like, following December 15 collapse of the Silver Bridge and the death of 46 people. The incident gave rise to the legend and connected Mothman sightings with the bridge collapse. Free my boy. He didn't do that. That wasn't him. All right, this one. I almost bought the one that said Mothman is real, we made out, and he is a gentle and caring lover. They are so good. I love when people just make up nonsense, and I think it's hilarious. All right. This one is called the Knot Deer, which just that was like unnerving to me, and I was like, I have to know more. Found in the Appalachian Mountains. You guys, I live right next to the Appalachian Mountains, okay? So I don't like to think about this, honestly. But I do, because it's interesting. The knot deer is described as looking like a deer from a distance, but as one looks at it longer or gets closer, something about it is off. Their movements are described as being like a newborn deer, but appearing as an adult. Some accounts suggest the creature is double jointed or has additional joints in its limbs. The limbs are described as longer than those of a deer, and the chest very barrel-like. The way it moves is said to be aggressive compared to a deer. The most defining feature, however, is that knot deers do not have eyes on the sides of their head, but rather the front, like a predator. This distinction is usually the first thing noticed as off. A few accounts involve multiple eyes, though most don't. Other uncommon outliers to the typical account involve describing the head as bovine. Knot deers are said to not be afraid of humans. Those who encounter them say they have an uneasy feeling that there is an intelligence and emotion about them that furthers the feeling that something is off. The knot deer will generally approach humans, and it's because of this that the odd movements are noted. Despite encounters feeling off, the creature has only been reported to attack if provoked, such as when an encountee tries to scare them off. That's what I would probably do. I'd be like, go away, and then I would run away. And then I guess it would eat me or something, because I did that. Some accounts of such involve being chased up a tree by a knot deer. The knot deer may walk on its hind legs. Again, stop standing on your hind legs. That's not cool. For a bit, as some animals may do, in order to intimidate or in attempts to reach individuals that are chased up trees. The knot deer reports are primarily found on Tumblr and Reddit, but after getting attention, I really should have looked those up. Oh, I bet they're interesting. But after getting attention seeped in recent years to TikTok and other sites, usually sightings are on roads, such as a case of driving alone on a motorcycle in the Appalachian Road, or seeing in the road what looks like a deer but becomes very obviously not a deer as the encountee gets closer. Ugh. Possible knot deers feature prominently in the Adventure Time episode, No One Can Hear You, serving as the main antagonist. While knot deer weren't relevant at the time, he has forward-facing eyes and walks upright. He is often considered the second scariest character in the show for this reason. I did grow up on Adventure Time, and as a child watched that episode, and it was terrifying. Just overall, what the fuck is going on? Why'd you write this episode? I've looked at some theories on why the hell they did that. And they're pretty interesting. But this, okay, basically Finn and Jake, they wake up and everybody's gone. No one's around. Well, Finn wakes up in the hospital. No one's around. He's broken both of his legs because they were fighting a deer. That I guess was terrorizing people. So they were fighting this deer and it broke both of his legs and it knocked out Jake. So he's like gets up. He's like waddling around because he's in like all of his lower body is in a cast. And he goes to find Jake. Jake is acting super weird because he's got a concussion, and that in and of itself is very creepy. And he's like, Jake, where's everybody out at? And he's like, they're hiding because it's my birthday, and they're doing like a surprise birthday party. And he's like, oh, okay, so we're just gonna like pretend that we don't know anything's up. He was like, yeah, because they won't come out if we like try to get them to. And so time goes on, and Jake is acting super weird, and Finn is like, hey man, it's been like all day. They're not coming out. That's so weird. And he's like, you just gotta be patient. He's like, I've been patient. I waited all day. And he's like, yeah, well, I've been waiting 6 months. And Finn is like, oh my fucking god. And he can't run because he has 2 broken legs. So he has to like trick Jake somehow. He gets away from him. He hears things in the sewer. He goes down to the sewer, and all of the people are stuck to the walls by like this weird gooey substance in the sewer. And he's like, what? Jake follows him down there, and he's like, and Jake's like, surprise, it's my birthday party. And he's like, what the fuck, you did this? And the people are like, no, he did. And they turn around, there's this fucking deer standing on its hind legs, looking at them. It's got its eyes in the front, I guess. I don't really remember, but this says it does, and I remember it being creepy as hell. And takes off his fucking hooves to reveal, he literally is like, reveal like hands, and he's been like eating the people. So anyways, there's my Adventure Time tangent, because that was my comfort show. Okay, next is Windigos. Alright, the Wendigo is a part of a traditional belief system as a number of Algonquian speaking people, so sorry if I said that wrong, although descriptions can vary somewhat. Common to all these cultures is the view that the Wendigo is a malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being. They were strongly associated with the North winter, cold, famine, and starvation. The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation. Its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion, the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton, recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from suppuration of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption. Wendigos are often described as giants that are many times larger than human beings, a characteristic absent from the myths in other Algonquian cultures. Whenever a Wendigo ate another person, it would grow in proportion to the meal it had just eaten, so it could never be full. Therefore, Wendigos are portrayed as simultaneously gluttonous and extremely thin due to starvation. The Wendigo is seen as the embodiment of gluttony, greed, and excess, never satisfied after killing after killing and consuming one person. They are constantly searching for new victims. That's the thing that I like about some of these is like they're like, hey, like they basically have like personified greed here, or like gluttony, and made it as ugly as it truly is, so that you can see like it's hurting people, it's killing and eating them, it's never happy, like that kind of thing. I think that stuff is super interesting. All right, next is Dear Woman. Dear Woman, sometimes known as Dear Lady, is a spirit in various indigenous American mythologies whose associations and qualities vary depending on situation and relationships. But generally, to men who have harmed women and children, she is vengeful and murderous, and known to lure these men to their deaths. like, basically my, uh, oh my god, what am I trying to say? I want that as a career. To their deaths, she appears as either a beautiful young woman with deer feet or as a deer. In 2017, 5,712 Indigenous women and girls were reported missing in the U.S. This demonstrates the sustained violence Indigenous women are being subjected to across all age groups, as it is reported that 84.3% of all Indigenous women in the U.S. have experienced violence in their lifetime. The violence against Indigenous communities has been identified as a consequence of the violent legacy of colonialism, as it permeates social and legal structures within the United States and Canada, and damages relationships among Indigenous men and women. The violence threatening women does not always come from the outside community, as community members and scholars have identified a portion of perpetrators to be Native men who have adopted colonial mindsets and its objectification of Indigenous women, having also developed a fetish for obtaining and sustaining power. Not only does the dear woman's history of abuse resonate with community members in the process of healing, but her strict adherence to traditional values and her rejection of colonial ideologies also support the larger goals of communal well-being and self-determination. Um, that looks like it's the end. Let's see. Did you guys have any cryptids that you wanted to talk about? I've got a couple more that I can read. But I wanted to make sure that you guys got to talk about some stuff if you wanted to. I'm gonna wait a second for you to respond, but I'll also read off your options. The Dobhar-chu is like a giant otter thing, which I like otters, so I put that in there. We can also talk about the Loch Ness monster, but I feel like everybody knows about the Loch Ness monster, you know. Chupacabra is in here. Um, and I think that that is the majority of like the like well-known ones that I put in here. I don't think Slenderman is a. Oh, I don't want to speak too fast. I thought he was a creepy pasta, but I could be wrong. I also am not fully sure about what creepy pastas are. I just remember like people in middle school were reading them and obsessed with them. All right, I'm gonna start with the Dobhar-chu because I think it's cool. Um, The physical description of a Dobhar-chu resembles an otter, but is said to be about 5 times as large, which is about 10 to 15 feet, with a white pelt, black ear tips, and a black cross shape on its back. Although, due to the murky waters it is said to reside in, its pelt may be portrayed as darker. The rake? What's that? Oh, he's not a cryptid. Okay, cool, cool. Um, yeah. A headstone found in Conwall Cemetery in Glenade County, Leitrim depicts the Dobhar-chu as and is claimed to be the headstone of a grave of a woman killed by the Dobhar-chu in the 18th century. This is, I believe, in Ireland. I believe, could be wrong. In 1922, Grace McGlowlin lived in the townland of Crevelia at the north. Guys, this kind of reading is just my worst nightmare. Um, Lived in the townland of Crevelia at the northwestern corner of Glenade Lough. One morning she went down to the lake to watch, which is I guess what Lough means, to wash some clothes. Some accounts say that her husband Terence rushed to the shore after hearing her scream, whilst others say that he went down after she failed to return that evening. Both accounts say Mr. McGlowlin rushed down only to find her mutilated body with the Dobhar-chu sleeping on top of her. Terence runs home, grabs a dagger before returning to kill the Dobhar-chu. I guess this is the 18th century. I'll admit I don't know when guns were a thing or if they were popular then, but this guy is going to kill this thing with a dagger. As the beast died, it let out a whistling yell to its mate, who soon rose from the lough. The second beast chased him from the lough, and after a long and bloody battle, which some accounts say he did not face alone, he killed the second Dobhar-chu. I want to know what happened to its body. Many sightings have been documented down through the years. Most recently, in 2007, Irish artist Sean Corcoran and his wife claimed to have witnessed the Dobhar-chu on Omi Island. In this description, the large, dark creature made a haunting screech, could swim fast, and had orange flipper-like feet. Insane. You have heard me speak. Normally, you are doing much better than me at reading this. Okay. The Loch Ness Monster, because why not? The Loch Ness Monster, Scottish Gaelic legend, known affectionately as Nessie, is a mythical creature in Scottish folklore that is said to inhabit Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. It is often described as a large, long neck with one or more humps protruding from the water. Popular interest and belief in the creature has varied since it was brought to worldwide attention in 1933. Evidence of its existence is anecdotal, with a number of disputed photographs and sonar readings. I think the sonar readings are interesting. Irish monk Saint Columba was staying in the land of the Picts with his companions when he encountered local residents burying a man by the river Ness. They explained that the man was swimming in the river when he was attacked by a water beast that mauled him and dragged him underwater. Despite their attempts to rescue him by boat, Columba sent a follower, I'm sorry, I'm going to give up on that one, to swim across the water. The beach approached him, and Columba made the sign of the cross and said, "Go no further. Do not touch the man. Go back at once." The creature stopped as if it had been pulled back with ropes and fled. The Columbus men and the Picts gave thanks for what they perceived as a miracle. In 1888, Mason Alexander MacDonald of Abratian sighted a large, stubby-legged animal surfacing from the loch and propelling itself within 50 yards of the shore. There, where MacDonald stood, MacDonald reported his sighting to Loch Ness water bailiff Alex Campbell and described the creature as looking like a salamander. The best-known article that first attracted a great deal of attention about the creature in 1933, the creature disported itself, rolling and plunging for fully a minute, and its body resembling that of a whale, and the water cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron. Soon after, it disappeared in a boiling mass of foam. Insane. Both onlookers confessed that there is something uncanny about the whole thing, for they realized that here was no ordinary denizen of the depths, because apart from the enormous size, the beast, in taking the final plunge, sent out waves that were big enough to have been caused by a passing steamer. When there are about a million, and then there's like a bunch of stories about like scientists debunking and theorizing that people were faking things, which absolutely, some people were definitely faking photographs and stuff, but that kind of kills the whimsy, so I didn't include them. Let's see. You guys, I'm so fucking excited for next week. I'm doing ghost stories, and I have so many. My brother has like a million stories, and he's like skeptical guy, but he has weird shit happen to him all the time. Loch Ness Monster and the Chupacabra. Okay, the Chupacabra literally means goat sucker from Spanish. Is a legendary creature or cryptid in the folklore of parts of the Americas. The name comes from the animal's purported vampirism. The Chupacabra is said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, including goats. Physical descriptions of the creature may vary. In Puerto Rico and in Hispanic America, it is generally described as a heavy creature, reptilian and alien-like, roughly the size of a small bear, and with a row of spines reaching from the neck to the base of the tail, while in southwestern United States it is depicted as more dog-like. Initial sightings and accompanying descriptions first occurred in Puerto Rico in 1995. The creature has since been reported as far north as Maine, as far south as Chile, and even outside of the Americas in countries like Russia and the Philippines. All of the reports are anecdotal and have been disregarded as uncorroborated or lacking evidence. Sightings in northern Mexico and the southern United States have been verified as canids. I think that's a kind of like dog, kind of like animal afflicted by mange. In 1975, a series of livestock killings in the small town of Mocha, Puerto Rico, were attributed to El Vampiro de Mocha, the vampire of the Mocha. Initially, it was suspected that the killings were committed by a satanic cult. Later, the killings were reported around the island, and many farms reported loss of animal life. Each of the animals were reported to have had its body bled dry through a series of smaller circular incisions. The first reported attack, eventually attributed to the actual Chupacabra, occurred in March 1995. 8 sheep were discovered dead in Puerto Rico, each with 3 puncture wounds in the chest area and reportedly drained of blood. A few months later, in August, an eyewitness named Madeline Tolentino reported seeing the creature in Puerto Rican town of Canovanas, where as many as 150 farm animals and pets were reportedly killed. The name was coined by a Puerto Rican comedian, Silverio Perez, which I think is funny because he was like probably doing like a bit when he was like, let's call it the goat sucker. Okay. I'm gonna maybe read like one of the ghost stories because I'm really excited about it and I have a bunch to read, so like one's not gonna hurt. Even though the title of this definitely says cryptids and folklore. Ghost stories. Okay, I think I'm gonna start with Jordan's. There's like a bunch of them. Okay, so prefacing again, Jordan is not super. Jordan's my brother. Jordan is not superstitious, but he's had like a ton of like undeniably creepy things happen around him. A lot of these interactions happen while he was with his old roommate Carter, who also has a lot of creepy things happen to him. So I think this stuff is pretty cool. I'll read because the last episode we talked about dreams, and this one is like not so much a ghost story as it was like he included it because their dorm felt very haunted and weird shit happened there, but this is also kind of dream related. Let me get my backup water. Okay. Ugh, these are so interesting. Okay. All right. Jordan had a dream that he was at an old one floor country house in some rural area and had been with someone, but they left him to be alone in that house. There were some old cassette tapes on the table and some gloves that were giving him a really unsettling feeling, and he looked at them and they were John Wayne Gacy tapes. And Jordan didn't know anything about John Wayne Gacy, but a couple of years later found out that the tapes that he had like tapes of himself, I guess, doing like freaky shit. Now like I'm not saying that there's no way Jordan had heard that somewhere and just forgot about it. It's sparkling water, and I keep that shit on me. Okay, I fucking love that. So anyways, as he's looking at these tapes, someone starts trying to get in through one of the doors. he ends up having to barricade the door with a table, and he's like holding it closed. But there's another sliding glass door to his left, so he's like looking back and forth from the main door and the sliding glass door to make sure that they don't just try the other door. And he's also trying to like barricade this one. When he woke up, he was sat up in his bed, which he was not a sleepwalker. He said he's never woken up sitting up before, and he was literally looking back and forth from his dorm bed, or from his dorm door that was right in front of him, and his closet door, which was to the left. He told his roommates about the dream in the morning, and they thought that he was fucking with them. Apparently, the night before, Carter had a nightmare where he was really freaked out for some reason. Like, Jordan doesn't remember the details, but he was really freaked out for some reason and was having to hold a door closed. And he woke up from the dream standing in the middle of his room with a sheet over the door of his closet, holding it closed. The third roommate, Cody, never reported having a similar dream, but Jordan and Carter were the ones that always had spooky things happen to them. And yeah, I theorized that things happened to them more because they were together for these couple years that they lived together. What the hell? I'll read another one. I really like these. I'm not a very patient person. Okay, so this one I remember him telling me, and I had him like recount it to get the details right, but this one I remember, and I thought it was so. So they had like he had like LED lights on his wall because he was like a sophomore in college, and that's what men do. And those were the only lights that were on, and he was doing homework on his computer. So like it's really dim. And Carter came and knocked on his door, and they were just chatting while Carter was standing in the doorway. Jordan sees Cody walk really quietly behind Carter through the hallway while they're talking, and he just leaves from his own bedroom across the hall to the bathroom, which was near Jordan's door where Carter was standing. So he's like, how did I phrase it? Where Carter was standing, and was just kind of idling there in like a shadow for a little bit. Jordan thought that Cody was going to try to scare Carter, who had no way of seeing him because he wasn't facing him at all. So he didn't say anything and kept talking like normal. Carter must have like felt him looming around him or caught him in his periphery and was like, Cody, stop. Like he was like, Cody, stop. Cody didn't respond. So he was like, Cody? And he goes to the door where Cody was. So now Jordan thinks that they're fucking with him. And Jordan and Carter go into the bathroom, and he's not there. Carter is like, I thought Cody walked behind me. And Jordan was like, I literally saw him walk behind you. And Cody is like, Cody is like, hello? And it comes from Cody's room, which, again, we've had eyes on the hallway the whole time. Cody's room's on this side. They saw him walk across the hallway into the bathroom area. So, and now Cody's talking to them from his room. They're like, what the hell? And then they hear Cody hop down from his bed, which is like 5 feet in the air, and walk to his door, stick his head out, and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Jordan had seen something go from Cody's room across the hall and assumed it was Cody because he was the only other person there. The only other person there. And Carter literally felt it behind him where Jordan saw that thing walk, and it was not Cody. He said, he got the two me's. He said that like essentially this thing looked like just like he couldn't see details, right? But Cody was blonde, and like it just kind of had like a light colored head and like was a person shape and walked across the hall. Just this stuff freaks me out. There's not enough cats in this room with me. I'm always like, hey, I'm good as long as the cats aren't acting weird, but they're not even here. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at those two because there's a lot of good stuff here, but then I'm not gonna have anything to read to the next one. Okay. Is there anything that I did not get to that you guys wanted to talk about? I don't know if you heard that, but a very loud car just passed my house. All right, cool. Okay, then I guess I'll leave it there. Um, Thanks so much for watching. You guys are the coolest, and I cannot stress to you how much you need to come to the next episode. I have so many cool um stories, and I'll also be like way less anxious because it'll be a week from now, and my meds will hopefully have settled in then. And I can be silly and goofy and fun. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.